Hello, beauties. Okay, so I told you that I had good stuff going on, and so now I'm going to show you a video of my defined brow stencils. Let me tell you, as an educator, I have noticed and have seen some amazing situations, shall I say, with shaping. And for me, it became very natural. I've been in the business 22 years, licensed professional esthetician and a makeup artist. So it was easy for me to remove hair, to add a look of hair, to draw on to freelance. So it became really natural for me. But I realized that my students, it's not so natural. And so, I struggled with teaching non esthetician or makeup artist for cosmetology or cosmetologist just because they struggled the most. And so the brow stencils, the defined brow stencils help tremendously. When I say help, it's for beginners or it's for advanced because guess what? You got to get a client that's going to have zero hair, none. And it's like a blank canvas. And not everyone can actually work from that. It's easier sometimes when you actually have a guide. You have a beginning, or you have a middle, or you have a tail. It actually helps when you are freehanding. But for other clients, it's not going to be so easy. And so I'm here to demonstrate and to show you exactly how to use my stencils. So here they are. I have two shapes. These are my favorite shapes. They do have other shapes available, but these were my favorite. I've seen other ones out, that not really my cup of tea, shall I say. So these are two different shapes. You can tell this one is fuller and this one is a little thinner. And so I have a guest artist. Hello there. I don't know what I'm going to call her, but she's wearing my short wig. So she's rocking my short do right now. And so because I had shaved all her hair off and yeah, she didn't look so pretty. So I had to make sure she was rocking a good little look. All right. So I'm going to demonstrate how I normally use the stencil. So you won't really see me. My focus will be on her. All right. So the first thing I like to do is when you're using the stencil, you want to make sure your inner and your beginning start in the same spot or as close as possible in the same spot, okay? Because all your clients want, when you're doing symmetry, all brows are one that's always a slightly higher. Sometimes you're going to have one that's actually really high up. I've had experiences to where I actually recently had to remove one complete brow, like literally wax off the whole brow to get it to match to the other. Some of you guys can't wax, so you're going to have to actually use a razor, unfortunately, or threading, okay? Or I always tell my clients, my students, I'm sorry, that if they're not comfortable with razor and they're not threading and you cannot wax because you're not a licensed esthetician or cosmetologist, it is a great idea if they go to the person who they have been going to get their eyebrows cleaned up and shaped or waxed or from somewhere else. That is a great guide, especially at the beginning, okay? All right. So I'm going to show you my tool that I normally just, and it's not going to be really perfect because it's kind of hard to work on a doll head, and I'm trying to demonstrate as well. So the first thing, my rule of thumb with the inner is to make sure it start right here where the nostrils start to protrude out, okay? So bear with me if you see my hand in the way. So the nostril is going to protrude out here. This is my rule of thumb. I'm going to make a mark here. And you can't see the mark, so I'm going to use, actually I'm going to do another line here for the beginning of the inner brow because I can see it, but I think the light is washing the line out. So you can see that one. So interesting enough, and this is a good example. This client I'm going to call her a client, and I tapped on her head. Don't ever do that. But this client actually have two different brows, if you notice. One is higher than the other, okay? And also, this brow starts back a little further. So this is actually a great example. So basically, this is where I did the marking for this one, this brow, and this is the marking I did for this brow. Can you see that? So you can just tell this is actually how your client's going to come in. One is thicker than the other. This is an awesome, awesome, great example. I love this. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So also the next thing I'm going to do, some brows start further in, back, as you see. So sometimes I pick and choose, and this is just brief. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I pick and choose which brow I'm going to like basically use for a guide. Okay. So I'm going to use this brow. It's the left brow. I'm going to use this brow right here. And I'm going to mark where I'm going to start and stop. It's hard to, like I said, so I'm going to go back to my marker, and basically that's how much hair I'm going to take off compared to this one. It's just a tad bit. Okay. So that's what I would do. And just, it is a little bit, you'll see those little black lines. So I actually will remove those hairs. Okay. So just depend on each client. Every client is going to always be different. All right. So I'm going to use the wire stencil, which has the yellow color. So I go by yellow and blue. I didn't name her. I didn't name them. No, I didn't. But so I'm going to turn my client around because it's easy for me to see, because again, it's going to be a little difficult and it may be a little lopsided or something like that because I'm not standing directly in front. Okay, so I'm going to remove the stencil. Okay, I'm going to remove the stencil. All right. Then I'm going to actually place, and I don't know, you guys see the little ruler? It's yellow. Right in the center of the bridge. So I'm going to line, I'm going to line the stencil up according to, it's like a magnet right now. Line the stencil according to the line that I started and in the middle. So the line underneath where I'm going to remove the hairs. And again, this is not going to be perfect, but this is just to give you a little example of how I use the stencil. Okay, can you see that? All right. So in the stencil, you see that the hairs on the right side actually fits in more in the stencil, and this brow completely just disappeared. It's not even in the stencil, only in the inner. So that case, guess what I would have to do to try to balance it? I would ask my client, basically, which brow do you like? Do you like the high arch or you like the lower arch? Okay. So anyhow, I'm going to just show you how I use with my China marker. So here, and again, this is not going to be perfect because I'm demonstrating on a doll head and I'm sideways. All right. Okay. Okay. So basically, that's how I actually use my stencil. All right. Like I said, just breathe. So therefore, I will actually have to do more work on this side versus this side. You see? All right. Like I said, just brief. I'm giving you a lot of good information here. All right. So when I'm removing my stencil, I will hold the skin taut, okay? And remove the stencil and hold the skin as I remove, okay? All right. All right. Okay. So that's how I actually would use my stencil. So hopefully this is good information for you all. Okay. You see that? So I'm actually creating a whole new brow on the left brow versus the right brow. All right. So say for instance, your client has a small eye closed in a little bit. What happens when you try to use the stencil and they have small eyes in the inner, it's actually closed in. What happens is in a state of form, right, actually like this. If you use the stencil and someone actually have a small frame, small eye, small forehead, guess what happens? The arch is over here on the side. So the arch is back here. That's what you don't want. So this is all about customizing your stencil. So what I would do, I would cut the middle along the dotted line here. And then I would use my guides here. So remember, I use a guide for my inner and then where I'm actually going to stop and start. Okay, so I'm going to use that guide. That's why I actually use my tool, my brow mapping tool at the beginning. Because now I have a guide to where actually I'm going to start. So here, once you cut it, you actually can place it up. You can place it down. It's just about customizing my stencil. So hopefully this was a great tool for you all, and I want to say thank you so far for purchasing my stabilizers, and some of you guys have already purchased my Define Brow Stencil, so I'm so excited and thank you very, very much. I appreciate you all. Send me an email, send me a DM if you have any questions. Stay tuned for what I have next. Let's see.